Daf Samach Aleph Amud Beis will begin at Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph at the very last line at the end of the line. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, Asher Mitzvah sheshachta shloi lishma. If the Asher Mitzvah, the Mitzvah that needs for his purification, he has to bring a korban Asham. If it was shechta shloi lishma, the general principle by korbanos, the exception of a chatas and a korban pesach, there's machlokes and tanoim about different korbanos, but generally speaking, on the other korbanos, if it was the avodah was a shlit was done shaloi lishma, the korban is kosher, but loy olu labal m'shem chayva. But the owner has not fulfilled his obligation, but the korban is kosher. So he says, "With ashim etzara sheshachta shaloi lishma was a shechta shaloi lishma, it was shechta not for its own sake, for a different type of a korban. One machlokes Rameir, Rabbi Elazar, or Shimon. We have it depends on this machlokes. We learned before of Rameir and Rabbi Elazar or Shimon. Now we learned before that Rameir says that if the dam of the par of the Sarah Yom Kippur is spilled out, then you can't continue from where you left off. You have to start from the beginning. But Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon says you continue from where you left off. So therefore, Rameir the Omar Yavi Acher v'Yaschal B'Tchila. Rameir says that on Yom Kippur you have to start from the beginning. You have to bring a new korban and start from the beginning. Achanami Yavi Acher v'Yishchet. Here also you have to bring another one and start from the beginning. Meaning, Rameir holds that an incomplete avodah is disregarded. The hazos that he did, which were incomplete, he did part of the hazos. Let's say in the Kodesh Kedoshim, or in the Heichal. He did some of them, not all of them. They're incomplete. The blood spilled, we disregard them. Now you bring another one. And even though you did already the hazos, the partial hazos, we disregard them, and it's not considered like you're bringing two korbanos. It's not like you're bringing a korban and repeating it. So therefore, here also, it's the same thing. You bring another asham, and then you start and do it properly, and it's not a violation of what the pasuk says, that echad. The pasuk says, now the pasuk says, you bring one korban, one lamb for the asham. But this is not a violation of that, because what's incomplete, the one was done shaloi lishma, is incomplete, and we disregard it. So therefore, the one that he does properly, that's the one that is considered, and it's considered to be echad. But according to Rabbi Elazar and Shimon, they say that if he did some of the hazos on Yom Kippur, the blood spilled out, we don't disregard the incomplete hazos. He continues from where he left off. That which was incomplete is not disregarded. In the takana, over here, there's no takana, because you can't disregard the incomplete asham that he shechted, and therefore you can only bring one, and therefore in the takana you can't bring another one. You can't bring another one for his to be misakin him, to be mitayr. Maskif Rav Chisda kasha. How can you say that according to Rameir that he can bring another one, that we disregard the first one and he brings another one? The pasuk says, he has to bring it for an asham. You can only bring one and you can't bring another one. Kasha. It's a kasha. But nevertheless, Tanya Gaval said Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brisa that's like Rabbi Yochanan that says that according to Rameir, you could bring another one. Ashim Mitzvah sheshachta shaloi lishma. If the Ashim Mitzvah was shechta shaloi lishma, or shaloi nasr midam lagabe b'hainus, or the coin did not apply from his blood to the big toe of the Mitzvah, to the big thumb of the big toe. Hareza oila lagabe mizbeach, you're makvir on the mizbeach, v'ton nesachim, and it requires the nesachim of the korban. The korban asham has to be brought with nesachim. You bring it with the nesachim that's brought with asham mitzvah, v'tzorach asham acher lahachshira, and it says clearly that you bring another asham to be machshir. So you see that according to Rameir, you do bring another Asham. Rav Chisda, how would Rav Chisda understand this? He says you don't. Rav Chisda, Amalach, my tzorach. What does it mean, tzorach? It means tzorach vein lo takana. Means is that it's necessary, it's needed. It's needed to affect his tahara, but you can't. Vein lo takana. It's what would be necessary, but l'maisa, practically, it cannot be makavit. Frank the Gemara, Tana tzarach vein lo takana. Does the Tana talk in those terms when he says tzorach, when there's no remedy, when you can't actually l'maisa do it? Gemara says yes, in. Well, I'll tell you, was taught in the Brisa, Nazir and Moira, if a Nazir is totally bald. So the din is by a Nazir that when he finishes, he completes his Yemei Nizrai, then you have to pass a razor over his head. And then you have to shave his head. So if he's bald, he's totally bald. Nevertheless, you need a passing of the razor. It says you have to pass the razors over his head. Beisil says, no, it's not necessary. He doesn't have any hair. He doesn't have any hair. The pasuk says that you have to shave his head is only if he has hair. So the pasuk says, "Kol yimei neder nizra tar lo yavar al roishay." He can't shave his head the whole entire time that he's in nazir ad melois hayamim asher yazul Hashem, until the completion of his naziris. But that's only, Beis Hillel says that when he has hair. If he doesn't, then it's not necessary. Now, va'omer Rabbi Avina kisha aimim Beis Shammai tzarach. When Beis Shammai says tzarech, what do they mean tzarech? It means tzarech vein lo takana. Means that it's needed. It would be needed the fact of the tar, but he has no hair, so therefore there's no takana. So you see that the Tana does use this type of expression, tzarech vein lo takana. But however, upliga the Rabbi Padas. But this explanation of Beis Shammai is not like Rabbi Padas. The Omar Rabbi Padas, because Rabbi Padas says Beis Shammai the Rabbi Elazar Amud Yomi Masechet. He says that they say they're in the same shita, they say one and the same thing. Beis Shammai Hada Amran is what we just discussed when it says Sorech, that he has to have a varas tar. So Hada Amran and Rabbi Elazar, what is Rabbi Elazar this nan? We learned in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah in the Goyim, it says Ein lo boin regel, if the Mitzvah does not have the right hand or a big toe, he doesn't have the thumb on the right hand or a big toe on the right foot. So now the application is supposed to be done. They're supposed to apply the dam to his big toe, to his right thumb on the thumb on his right hand, and to the big toe on his right foot. That's where the application is supposed to be done. But let's say he's missing the thumb on his right hand, or he's missing the big toe on his right foot. There's no tara. It can't be purified. As Rashi explains, because being in kroket, we have to fulfill the pasuk literally, and the pasuk says, "V'lakar chayin midam ha'asham v'nasan ha'kohen al tenuch oizen ha'mitari manis v'al boin yoray manis v'al boin ragal manis." It has to be applied to the right thumb and the right big toe, and if he doesn't have it, being in kroket, there's no tahara. But Rabbi Elazar Nisan al mekayma v'yaitze, he says you put it on the place, on the stump. You put it on the place where the toe or the thumb would be. Meaning, you don't need kroket, you just put it on the place. That's what Rabbi Elazar says. Rabbi Shimon Aimer im nasan al shel small yotza. He says if you put it on the left hand, then you're right. So the big toe, the big thumb on the left hand, on the left foot, then you're yaitza. Meaning the way the Tiferes Yisrael explains it is that he agrees that you don't need loibin and kroket. But he says, so what is preferable? You can either put it on the right hand or the right foot, but there's no thumb, so put it on the place, on the stump, or you can be mekayim it more fully by putting it on a thumb and putting it on a toe, but on the left hand. So which one is preferable? So Rabbi Shimon says you put it on the small. Rabbi Elazar says the right is preferable. It's preferable to put it on the right side. But in any event, what do we see over here? We see over here that the Rabbi Padas says that Beis Shammai and Rabbi Elazar are medavar echad, that you loibin and kroket, therefore tzorech when the Beis Shammai says you need havoras tar, even though he doesn't have hair, you put it on mekayma. You put it on the place. It's not tzorech vein lo takana. It's tzorech v'yesh lo takana. So therefore, pligi derabdas, because over here we see that Beis Shammai says when they say tzorech, they mean literally tzorech. That's what's required to be done. Even though he doesn't have hair, you shave the bald spot. Ton Rabbanon v'lakach midam ha'asham. Regarding the Mitzvah, the Torah says that he takes from the dam of the Hasham. He takes from the dam of the Hasham. The pasuk says v'lakach achayin midam ha'asham v'nasan akayin al tinuch oizen ha'mitar ha'yamanis v'albayin yad ha'yamanis v'albayin ragal ha'yamanis. So it says v'lakach, which means the Kabbalah Sadam. Yachal b'kli. You might think that he's makabalet in a kli shores tam lemer v'nasa. It says he applies it. He applies it to the Mitzvah. He applies it. He dips his finger into the blood and he puts it on the earlobe, on the right thumb, and on the toe. Now that's done. He says tam lemer v'nasa. Manasina atzmishal kain. It's done with the kain's finger. It's done personally with his finger. Aflakicha b'atzmishal kain. So therefore, we make a hekesh between the two, and he's makabel the dam within his hand. He's makabel his hands with his hands. How do we know that the nesina is done with ba'atzmishal kain? So Tesis explains, because it says it clearly by the oil, by the shemen, and we learn out from the shemen. And just like the shemen is ba'atzmishal kain, here also it's ba'atzmishal kain. So therefore, it's done ba'atzmai, the kabbalah with the, not with the klishoras, with the kohen in his hand. So yachal afla mizbeach, you might think that the blood that's thrown onto the mizbeach should also be done. He should also be makabelit in his hands and not in the klishoras. Talmud loymar ki kachatas ha'asham hu. It says ki kachatas ha'asham. The asham is like a chatas. The pasuk says, B'shachat as a keves b'mekayim asher yishchat as a chatas v'es ha'oila b'mekayim ha'kodesh ki kachatas ha'asham hu l'kayin kodesh kadashim hu. So therefore we compare it to a chatas. Ma chatas to a kli, just like the korban chatas needs a kli shoras for the Kabbalah Sadam, afasham to a kli. So too, we see this hekesh between them. The Hashem also needs a kli. How do we know that the chatas needs a kli? It says by Har Sinai, the Moshe Rabbeinu is makriv the oil shlom, and he's makabel, it's half the blood in the agonos and the basins in the kli. And the pasuk says, so it says this is the Torah for these korbanos. So all these have these. All those halachas they have in common that they also need a Kabbalah. They need a Kabbalah's kli. So here also the Hashem Tzayra also needs a Kabbalah's kli. So we have one limud that tells us that it's done ba'atzma with his hand, and another limud that tells me that it's b'kli. Nimses ata imer. Therefore, you must say that Hashem Tzayra shnei kahanim mekabel as damai, that it requires two kahanim to be mekabel the dam. Echad biyad v'echad b'kli. One is mekabel it in his hands, and the other one in a kli. Zeh shekibel b'kli, the kind that's mekabel b'kli, bol eitzel mizbeach, he comes to the mizbeach to do the zrika on the mizbeach. V'zeh shekibel biyad, the one that's mekabel in his hand, bol eitzel mitzayra, he comes to the mitzayra to do the application, the hazos, on the mitzayra.